Holy shit, you guys. This story, it just keeps getting weirder and weirder. What is going on? What is going on? So I made an entire video yesterday. What is up, my brethren? Predicated upon the information about Natalia's adult education. However, a whole bunch of new information just came to light thanks to Daily Mail. So the video is probably gonna look like a little bit of a hodgepodge. I'm gonna include all the information that I had previously recorded and some of this new stuff as well. But I wanna make sure that you guys are informed and up to date. Let's get to it. Evidently, Natalia's mother has been found. Her name is Anna Volodymyrivna Gaba. She's a 40-year-old woman from the southern Ukraine who says that she gave Natalia up for adoption 16 years ago. She says the doctors told her to leave the baby. I don't know what that means. I guess that means like leaving it up for adoption. She said they told her that she needed to leave the baby or it will ruin her life. That they said the baby will never be good, that the baby will never walk on its own, and that will basically be chained to a chair or a bed for the rest of its life. I'm assuming that they don't mean literally chained, I think. She said basically that she felt like she was forced into giving up her daughter. She said that she hopes someday Natalia will return to the Ukraine and meet her 4 other children. Evidently, Natalia has 2 brothers and 2 sisters. That puts a wrinkle in things a little bit. If you haven't seen my first 2 videos on this topic, I will link those down in the description where I talk about the backstory, how this case came to be, why Kristine and Michael were arrested. I'm gonna do a brief recap in the course of this video, but I really want to get to what the updates are for this case. So there may be the hardest evidence yet that Natalia Grace Barnett is an adult and not a child. So just a brief recap. Kristine and Michael Barnett were arrested for neglect when they moved to Canada and placed their adopted daughter, who was from the Ukraine, in an apartment. They've been arrested and charged with neglect. The Barnetts flew down to Florida and performed an emergency adoption of this girl from the Ukraine that they thought was 6 years old, who had been abandoned by her previous parents. Another interesting little tidbit of information, the original couple that was supposed to adopt Natalia, I mentioned them before in the previous videos. Well, evidently they've been found as well, but they don't want to make a statement. Their names are Gary and Dian Ciccone? I don't know how to say their names. But evidently they had originally adopted her, don't want to discuss their time with her or why they gave her up. But evidently this couple is the reason that Natalia ended up in the Florida adoption agency where Michael and Kristine Barnett adopted her from originally. Now, while they were told that she is 6 years old, Kristine claims that they found out very quickly that she was actually way older than she said she was. The girl suffers from a rare form of dwarfism, and she stands around 3 feet tall. Kristine claims that the girl was actually an adult from the moment that they met. She said that she had periods, she had adult teeth, she had a full set of pubic hair, which would be odd for a girl who's supposed to be 6 years old. She said she never grew a single inch, and the doctors confirmed that she was suffering from severe psychological illness that only an adult would have. So where it gets really weird, Kristine says that once Natalia was confronted about her age, her behavior became very erratic and violent. She threatened violence on the family, she poured bleach in their coffee, she smeared bodily fluids on the wall, she tried to push the mother into an electric fence. She said that Natalia would stand over them at night and threaten to kill them. She says it got really scary. In June of 2012, the Marion County Superior Court in Indianapolis changed her date of birth from 2003 to 1989, making her 22 at the time. Evidently, this was based on paperwork that the Barnetts provided from her psychological evaluations and from doctors they had examine her. When the Barnetts moved to Canada, they had Natalia set up in a state home in Indiana. However, she was evicted from that home After that, they got her an apartment. According to Kristine, they paid the rent for that apartment for an entire year. And here's where the interesting part about her being an adult comes in. In that time when they were in Canada and she was on her own, she enrolled to get her GED at the Lafayette Adult Resource Academy. In order to get into this academy, you have to be 16 years old. In order to enroll in classes at this school, you have to take an exam. And that exam will determine what level you're at in math, science, English, and you have to be at a junior high level. Basically, to get in this school, you have to have basic education and you have to be an adult. Now, while she was at this school, she met a woman named Margaret Axum. They attended classes there together and would often meet up with people outside of the school at a drug and alcohol recovery house. Margaret says she wasn't sure how old Natalia was, but she was certain that she was at least 18. She said that she didn't seem worldly enough for her to be 30 now, but felt like she's probably somewhere in between. She said around September of 2013, Natalia just suddenly disappeared. She had no idea where she went, didn't hear from her again. 3 years later, in April of 2016, is when Antoine and Cynthia Manns came into the picture and petitioned to be Natalia's guardian. Michael Barnett and his lawyer went to court and fought the Manns, and the court decided against the Manns. In January of 2018, the Manns dropped the petition to be her legal guardian. For some other interesting additional information, another Indiana woman who adopted a child from Ukraine said that the Ukraine falsifies documents and that basically they determine children's age by their height, which might explain why Natalia's Ukrainian birth certificate says that she was born in 2003 and was 6 years old when the Barnetts first adopted her. The police and prosecution actually point back to evaluations that were done in 2010 and 2012 saying that the bone density proved that Natalia was still a child. However, even if it's determined that Natalia is an adult, the Barnetts could still face charges because according to a prosecutor, Indiana's neglect statute defines a dependent as a person of any age who has a mental or physical disability. Natalia could still qualify as a dependent, and therefore the Barnetts could be charged with neglect by leaving her alone even though she was an adult. Evidently, there's a confidential hearing on October 15th, but the jury trial is set to start January 28th of 2020. The Barnetts could face 5 years in prison apiece and up to $10,000 in fines. So Kristine posted on Facebook about this a couple weeks ago, and she said, "My work for the neurodiversity movement is important work, and this happening to me is devastating because my real work here is to show the potential in suffering children. I have been trying my whole life to show that children with disabilities are precious children with beautiful minds who are capable and here for a purpose. I am praying for Natalia, who I believe is ill, and I am dismayed by the way that our mental health system treats people. The state of Indiana actually discharged Natalia into a halfway house over a year before this, making her homeless and mentally ill. Natalia is and always has been an adult at the time that I knew her, but that did not stop me from always seeking her best interest." I'm not really sure what to make of that statement. It could totally be legitimate. It could be her trying to save her hide. I don't know. Kristine has lost her job over this, and there is a GoFundMe page set up to help her with expenses, both personal and legal, I believe. I'm not going to post a link to her GoFundMe because I don't know if she's telling the truth, and I wouldn't want to post a link to help support someone who's potentially a criminal. At this point, I think her story sounds pretty credible, but at the same time, she could potentially still be a criminal. That being said, another piece of interesting additional information comes from the attorney who represented Natalia in 2013. Her name is LaDonna Sorensen. She claims that she doesn't believe Natalia is an adult. What reason does she have to lie about it now? Clearly, that's her honest opinion, I would think. The attorney that represented the Manns family, he also pointed out that when the Barnetts had Natalia's birth year changed from 2003 to 1989, Natalia didn't have any representation. She had no way to defend herself, I guess, against the Barnetts, really. All right, so that's where we are with this story. We're up to date as of right now. Who knows what kind of story is going to come out next to completely change everything. Every time I think I'm up to date, something new comes out. So we'll just have to see. I don't know how to take this new information. Is Is this woman from the Ukraine? Is she legit? Daily Mail seems to think so. They feel like they've tracked her down and that there's paperwork to substantiate their claim that this is Natalia's actual mother. And if that's the case, then that means she's actually 16 years old and all of this adult stuff was just made up and fabricated by Kristine and Michael Barnett. We really don't know what the truth is here. One person or many people are definitely lying. Is she an adult? Is she a child? Every time I get a piece of information that seems to point one way or the other, something else brings it back the opposite direction. I don't know who to believe. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. Definitely subscribe, especially for updates about this Natalia Barnett case. Hit the bell for notifications. I love all of you. I'll speak to you soon. What the hell was I saying? Is this damn thing even in focus? If I could not stutter, that'd be good. Blah, 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 blah. Crack it? Yeah, crack it, smack it, whap it, pinch it, squeeze it, tease it. What is up, my brethren? I am Jarvis Black, and I am so glad to see you again. People keep asking me for another update on the Natalia Barnett case, and there hasn't really been much going on until this week. There is an update, and it's a good news, bad news situation. The good news is there is an update. The bad news is there might not be much in the way of updates for quite some time, probably until the trial. So the update is that Superior Court Judge Stephen Meyer granted a gag order on Monday, October 28th, barring the defendants, so Kristine and Michael Barnett, from making statements to the public regarding medical, mental health, education records, character, or credibility before the trial. So Kristine and Michael Barnett are not allowed to say anything about the trial, except they can make general statements about the case and their innocence. Basically, the prosecutor, Jackie Starbuck, no relation to coffee, I don't think anyway, made the argument that the defendants were using the media coverage to sway public opinion. And really, she's pretty much right. I was questioning the motivations of Michael and Kristine for talking to the media, going on Dr. Oz and all of these different media outlets. Like, why were they doing that? I kind of felt like they probably were trying to sway public opinion, that they were trying to sway potential jurors in this case. If you look at like down in the comments of these videos, most of the comments tend to lean towards Natalia being this crazy psychopath, sociopath, awful person. And a lot of the comments are pretty mean. The reality is that we don't know what's really going on in this situation. Most of the media has taken Kristine and Michael at their word about the events that have happened. It hasn't helped that we really haven't heard much from Natalia's side. Basically, the judge felt like this case was getting enough media coverage that it could potentially sway a jury, and so it met the guidelines for a gag order. The judge said, quote, "In some ways, the cat is already out of the bag." Now, I don't know exactly what that means, but the cat being already out of the bag, does that mean that a lot of the evidence that we've already seen is actually true? Or does that just mean that a lot of media coverage has put a lot of eyes on this case and we don't know what's true from what's been reported? So I'm not going to go through all of the details of this case, but basically Kristine and Michael were accused of abandoning their adopted daughter who was from the Ukraine, who said that she was 6 years old at the time when they adopted her. They claimed that she was actually an adult. They had her age legally changed. They got her an apartment. They put her on state support, and they moved to Canada for their other son's schooling, the son that was featured on 60 Minutes. Quite a few years later, Natalia has a new adopted family, and police have brought charges of neglect against Kristine and Michael Barnett. The trial starts in January. Hopefully, when the trial comes out, we'll know more and we'll actually get to hear the truth of this case and see the hard evidence and find out what the hell is actually going on here. I've been talking about this case for quite some time. I have like 5 other videos about this as this case unfolded. I will link those in the description below if you want to go check those out. People keep commenting, oh, you didn't mention this part, or what about this part, or what about this part? Chances are I probably already talked about it in one of my videos, and I just didn't want to keep repeating myself over and over and over again. So I have an entire series. I've created a playlist. Go check that playlist out. Watch those videos. I guarantee you will love it more than anything you've ever loved in your entire life. Okay. There's a good chance that whatever it is that you commenting that I didn't talk about, probably mentioned in those other videos. So that being said, I'm going to wrap the video up here. If you like what I'm doing here, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. If you enjoyed this video, crack that like button. Crack it? Yeah, crack it, smack it, whap it, pinch it, squeeze it, tease it. Hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. I will love you always and forever. Peace. What is up, my brethren? I am Jarvis Black. Thank you for coming back. I'm a rhymer now. I'm a rhymist. Natalia Barnett was on Dr. Phil this week. Oh my God, it is a doozy to unpack. Holy shit, you guys, this is gonna get crazy. I don't know what to tell y'all, but whew, this one is juicy. So I have been trying to sort through this, this interview. I don't even know where to start, but let's just dive into this craziness. Last week, I said that there wouldn't be much in the way of updates, and then I saw somebody commented that she was going to be on Dr. Phil, so here we are. There's a number of things that stood out to me about this interview that I want to touch on.
How old are you?
I'm 16.
When is your birthday?
September 4th, 2003.
So right off the bat, Natalia claims that she was born in 2003. She's sticking to the story that she's 16 years old. I find it interesting that she's sticking with that 2003 date, because in 2010, the doctors said that she was actually 8 years old. Again, 2 years later in 2012, they said that she was 11 at that time. Based on what the bone density that the doctors have looked at, they're saying that she's at least 2 or 3 years older than she's saying that she is. Also, can we address the fact that she has like this New Jersey or New York accent? I know that she says that she was with a number of families, and she says like 30, and then Dr. Phil's like, what, 30? Dr. Phil's like, you were like 30, and she's like, I don't know, I don't remember. Then she says like one of them was like in New York or something, but she couldn't have been with them that long. How does she develop like this New York, New Jersey accent when she wasn't with these families that long, but she was like in the Ukraine until she was 6 years old and has no Ukrainian accent? Like, something about that just seems weird and doesn't add up. So back to the 30 families thing, Natalia says that Kristine said that she was with like 30 families, which doesn't really make sense. I mean, if she was in like foster care or something, she's going to be bouncing around from like home to home, but 30 different homes, like where did Kristine get that number? Was that just like made up? Was it foster homes? Was it adoptive parents? There was at least that we know of one other adoptive parent, and it sounds like in this interview, Natalia kind of says that there were 2 other adoptive families that gave her up. I don't really know where that like came from, but also how did she bounce around to so many families so quickly, and why? Also, why doesn't she have records of any of this? Wouldn't there be records of the foster families that she was with, the adoptive parents that she was with? Why does it seem like nobody has records of anything? This is where the story gets really interesting, because she talks about being with 2 other families that it sounds like adopted her. And in the first one, she says that they gave her up because she was wrestling on the floor with the son. The mother claimed that Natalia tried to break her son's arm.
They had 2 boys, and one of the boys, me and him were really close, so we like wrestled almost, but I landed on his arm wrong, so the mom thought I was trying to break his arm. So then that's when she was like, I can't do this anymore.
Natalia's volunteering this story, which seems weird. She's like dismissing it, but it actually kind of lends credence to what, surprisingly, I wouldn't have thought that that was possible, but she's lending credence to what Kristine and Michael are saying. If other parents think that she was intentionally malicious towards their children, that aligns with what the Barnetts are saying. And she's readily admitting this on Dr. Phil, and nobody's saying anything like, this is weird. And don't get me wrong, I am not trying to justify the Barnetts, what the Barnetts did, or even their stories, which don't add up a lot of the time, that don't even really make logical sense to me a lot of the time. But I think it's weird that there are multiple other families, because the second family she talks about, she says that, oh, things were great. She says their name was the DePauls, I think? Yeah, she says the DePauls. She says that things were fine, things were great there, but they gave her up because of financial reasons.
I don't remember all the families. I just remember this one family that, because I was with them the most.
And what was their name?
They were the DePauls.
DePauls. And how'd it go there?
It was good. Me and their daughter, we were close.
And why did you not stay there?
I think it was like a money issue.
Now, why are these families giving her up? Maybe it's because of her dwarfism and they're being prejudiced and they are immediately thinking that she's bad, or they don't want to have to deal with the potential medical issues. Maybe that was why there was the money issue with the second family. Maybe the Barnetts are being discriminatory and she's actually like telling the truth about everything. But it just seems odd that multiple families adopted her and gave her up before she even got to the Barnetts. And there's another family claiming that she was violent towards their child. Okay, then Natalia says something really, really interesting. She said that after a surgery is when Kristine started questioning her age.
What was your first clue that it was heading down a bad road?
It was after my surgery when she started questioning about my age. And then, like, everything started happening after that one moment.
Now, I found this really, really fascinating, because that means that Natalia is admitting that Kristine and Michael were questioning her age. We don't know if Kristine and Michael were just making up this entire age thing, trying to get her age changed just so that they could abandon her and move to Canada. And if they're legitimately questioning her age, then maybe that means that in their minds, at least, whether or not it's true, in their minds, they don't think that they've done anything wrong and that they actually aren't necessarily lying about how they feel or what they think about her age. Maybe they are telling the truth, because there's been a lot of what they've said that just didn't make sense to me and it felt like they were lying. Maybe Kristine and Michael weren't acting with malicious intent, which I was definitely questioning. Maybe that was the case. One part that I thought was weird when Dr. Phil was saying that the medical paperwork wasn't given to the Barnetts by Natalia directly, and so therefore she wasn't the one trying to defraud the Barnetts. That doesn't make any sense, because Natalia could have lied to doctors, she could have lied to the adoption agency, she could have lied to any number of people that would have falsified the documents for her based on what she was telling them. And also the medical professionals in the Ukraine or other people could have made up things, created this false paperwork, and then Natalia could have just gone along with it. It doesn't exonerate her of lying about any of it just because she didn't directly give the medical paperwork to the Barnetts.
We were told in the medical paperwork that we had that she was 6 years old.
Okay. Now, in the medical paperwork they were told she was 6 years old. And then they say that you're a scam artist. You didn't give them the medical paperwork. Someone had to provide that. If there's a scam here, it doesn't emanate from you.
Right.
One part that cracked me up was Dr. Phil asking her about the bleach in the coffee, and she corrects him and says, "It was lemon pledge." She goes on to say that she wasn't trying to like poison Kristine, but that part cracked me up. Like, she knew exactly what he was talking about.
Sprayed bleach in her coffee.
It was lemon pledge for tables.
And she actually has footage of you doing that.
So we had missed a spot. So what I did was I scooted the chair over so I could get up there, and I scooted her coffee back so I could grab the thing, because it was in front of it. So I scooted it back, and I grabbed it. She came out and was like, "What are you doing?" And then she claimed that I tried to spray it in her coffee. You could look in her coffee. There was nothing.
And that was an interesting thing, really, with that whole piece of it, because maybe she sprayed lemon pledge in the coffee. Maybe she didn't. Maybe Kristine was already questioning her age and questioning things. And so maybe Kristine was like just extra suspicious and being ridiculous about the entire situation. Maybe Natalia got mad and threatened to spray it in her coffee or something, and maybe it didn't actually happen. Neither Natalia's, if you watch Natalia's version of the events, it doesn't really make sense. And if you listen to Kristine's version of the events, it doesn't make sense either. That's why I feel like the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I don't know. I have to say, something about this interview and Natalia's responses just seemed disingenuous to me. And I've been somebody who's been kind of on the fence and not wanting to take the Barnetts just at their word for everything that's happened and wanting to hear Natalia's side. But now that I've heard her side of it and I've heard the Barnett's side of it, neither side adds up. Neither side really makes complete sense to me, but something about it just felt weird and off. Dr. Phil asked Natalia if she thought the Barnetts should be punished, and she gave this kind of weird, convoluted, roundabout response and then implicated that after they do their time and whatnot. So Dr. Phil further pressed her on it, and she basically said, yeah, they should be punished because it's not right to do that to a child, which I thought was a really weird response. It's like she's talking about somebody else, and maybe it's just sort of disassociation because of the trauma, or maybe she's not telling the truth, but it just seems weird. Wouldn't you be like, what they did to me wasn't right? What they did to me, like talking about it in the first person?
They're being criminally prosecuted. They've been charged at least. What do you think should happen to them?
I just want them to give up on the whole charade. Like, I don't want them to just keep on with this. I just want it to be over. I want them to be able to have their normal lives back after this is all over and they did their time.
So you think they should go to jail for abandoning a child, endangering a child, whatever the charges might be?
Like, I don't want them to, but with what happened, it's not right to do that to a child.
Dr. Phil comes out and says that she doesn't come across like a 16-year-old, and he says that it's because she's more mature because of everything that she's went through. But in the same interview, he also says that her maturity would have been less based on what he's seen of kids going through foster care and having to deal with that process, her being in the Ukrainian group home, that she would have been a year or more immature for her age, and references that when he's talking about her living in her own apartment. Which is it? Because that doesn't really make sense. Dr. Phil contradicts himself.
The hardest thing that you have to deal with now is you don't come across as 16 years old. She was forced to grow up ahead of her time. And so you come across as much more mature than a 16-year-old.
The part where Cynthia Mans is talking about her age and like when she encountered Natalia, she said that a neighbor called her and she went down there and she like asked Natalia if she was 22. Like, are you 22? Natalia's like, yeah, I'm 22. Cynthia's like, you're not 22. You come home with me. And then brings her home. She basically says, look at her. She can't be 22. That is the whole point. Her dwarfism makes it difficult to tell what age she is and isn't going to look 22. Taking her from her apartment and bringing her back to the man's household was just based on looking at her and going, you're not the age you say you are, and that's it. And I also wonder if that really is what made it easy for Natalia, if Natalia is an adult and not a child, to fall back into being adopted by another family yet again and pretending to be a child if she is pretending, because it sounds like Cynthia just sort of asserted her will. Like, why wouldn't she just go along with Cynthia in a previous video where somebody who had adopted children from the Ukraine had said that their paperwork is sketchy and that they look at children and go, you're this age because you're this height. That could have very possibly been what happened. And Cynthia Mans basically did the same thing, looked at her and go, no, you're this age.
And my friend called me and was like, you need to come down here right away. So I go over there and she said, she's telling me she's 22. Like, look at her. She's not 22. And I go, are you 22? She said, yeah. But you could tell that it was just like, yeah, because I was told,
That's
yeah.
what I'm supposed to say.
Mm-hmm. So I go, okay. And she said, I have my own apartment. And I'm like, no, you don't.
So Dr. Phil makes the point that an 8-year-old wouldn't be able to survive on their own. Now, I don't know about you, but my son, when he was 8, wouldn't have been able to live in an apartment by himself. It doesn't matter if there were frozen boxed food in the freezer that he could microwave. He wouldn't be able to survive and live on a day-to-day basis in his own apartment at 8 years old.
You go into an apartment functioning at 6 or 7. A 6 or 7-year-old child living in an apartment alone for a year? That's just not believable to me. How does that happen?
I think that she groomed her before she did this to have her ready for this.
But in terms of activities of daily living, health, food, stove, working with an oven, a 6-year-old child just simply doesn't know how to do the activities of daily living for independent existence.
Right.
So just like I've called out Kristine and Michael's side of it for not making sense and not seeming plausible in a lot of different areas, I feel like Natalia's side of it doesn't quite make sense either. And I just feel like both sides are probably lying in this case, and I don't really know what the actual truth is. I feel like there's pieces missing from both sides of the story. I don't know everything. I wasn't there. The people that were there are the only ones that know the truth. Hopefully we'll find out the truth when the trial happens in January. Well, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button. If you like what I'm doing here, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll catch up with you soon. Thanks for stopping by, San Diego. What is up, my brethren? Welcome to another episode of Heckle TV. I am Jarvis Black, and it is cold and it is dark. Oh, we got horrible, horrible lighting. I'm out for a walk. I was just thinking about the Joe Rogan podcast today with Tim Dillon, which was hilarious. If you haven't seen it, go check it out.
There was a couple that adopted a child from Russia, and they thought that the child was a little kid. And it turned out she might have been 30. They don't know how old she was. She tried to kill them. She scared them. It was a fucking horror movie.
They talked quite a bit about the Natalia Barnett story, something I've been covering over the past couple of months. And it's really interesting because I love Joe Rogan. Let me set that straight up front. Oh, you can't even see my face at all. I thought it was really interesting to hear him talk about the Natalia Barnett story because it's one of those things that not everybody has heard the whole story. Not everybody has gone through all of the information. Like, I don't think they mentioned at all that Natalia was on Dr. Phil and shared her side of the story.
And the idea that there are midgets dressing up as children and trying to burrow into families so that they can wake up in the middle of the night and kill them is truly the funniest thing that has happened in recent memory.
I think we've got a little bit better light on this side of the street. I think it's really interesting to see people talk about the story, something I've been following like really closely. And for it to be, I guess, here what an outside perspective, somebody who hasn't been following it closely, and the immediate sort of guttural reaction to Kristine Barnett's story, because Kristine and Michael's story is what has really made the rounds, as opposed to any other version of the story. The interesting thing is, you know, maybe they're right. So legally, she is an adult pretending to be a kid, I guess. But I think that's what the prosecution is trying to prove, is that the opposite is actually true. And the reality is we don't know. We have no idea what the real story is. But somebody who hasn't been exposed to the story or has just heard about it piecemeal from different places is automatically going to think, you know, that Kristine and Michael's version is the absolute truth. And the reality is we don't know. And I'll be excited to hear more information as it comes out about the story. Make sure you smash that like button, baby. It's cold out. The likes make me warm. They make me all warm and fuzzy inside. So smash that like button. Subscribe if you like these cold diatribes. And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me. So F me, F it all, F this video for sure. What is up, my brethren? This is Heckle TV. I am Jarvis Black. Thank you for coming back. I am so glad to see your beautiful faces again. Today we're talking about an update to the Natalia Barnett case and the subpoenas that have been filed. And I'm going to talk about your beautiful, wonderful comments. You probably wonder what's going on behind me, and that is a whole lot of nothing. And that's because I'm moving my office. So I have been painstakingly taking down all of the sound dampening foam piece by piece, and it's been a party. It's been a party, and you should be jealous that you weren't here for it. Now let's talk about the updates to the Natalia Barnett case, and then we'll jump into your amazing comments. I have a playlist going back a couple of months with a number of videos that I've made on this topic, so I'm not going to recap everything. All the previous videos cover the details of the case, so I'm not going to get into it here. The update to the Natalia Barnett case is that the prosecutor has filed subpoenas against a number of people, including Inside Edition. Inside Edition was asked to provide all business records and all audio and or video records relating to Michael Barnett and his attorney Terrence Kinnard and their appearance on the Inside Edition show on October 9th. Additionally, Natalia Barnett, Sheriff Bob Goldsmith, Detective Brandon Davenport have all been issued subpoenas to testify at the prosecutor's office on December 17th. Now, I don't know what the prosecutor is hoping to find with the footage and audio from Inside Edition, but clearly they think that there's something in those tapes that is going to help their case, something that Michael Barnett may have said off camera or something like that, I can only assume. I think it would be pretty ironic if there's something that was said off camera or something that was said as a part of these appearances that ultimately end up getting him in trouble. He's been, you know, talking to whoever would listen. Is it whomever? Whoever? I don't know. Whomever would listen about his side of the story, and to have that kind of blow up in his face would be pretty ironic and interesting. I don't know. We'll have to see what comes out of it. All right, so let's jump into your comments. I just want to say I try to reply to as many comments as I possibly can. There's so many on some of the videos that at this point, like, it's just virtually impossible to reply to everybody. There's also some that just frankly don't warrant a response. But just because I haven't responded to your comment or reacted to it doesn't mean that I don't appreciate it, because I do. Please leave comments below. I do appreciate them. I try to read them all and respond to as many as I possibly can. So with that said, let's jump into it. So Jenna Padraza says, shave the shoal pash. Is this a Sean Connery? Shave the shoal pash. There's way too many sounds in that. I think she's talking about this. The soul, this. Yeah, I've shaved it like 2 or 3 times in my life, and I've regretted it every time. So I don't care if it's not in style or whatever. I've never given a shit about that, but no, I'm gonna keep it. Sorry. Maria Marunik says, why don't you try to pronounce their names? Maybe for that reason. Exactly, right there. I'm kind of dumb and I can't pronounce things very well. The Average Mama with Amy says, Daily Mail, LMAO. I agree. Daily Mail is not always the most reputable news source. Clickbait Daily probably would be a little bit more accurate. Jolie Beegum says, this story is just so confusing. Yeah, it's confusing as fuck. That's for sure. I don't know who the hell is telling the truth. Case 7372 said, the Ukraine is corrupt? Who would have thought? Crying, laughing emoji. Why? What do you mean? Have you heard anything about that recently? I have no idea. I'm just a clueless idiot. Rhino Lascavio says, why are you releasing names that are unnecessary? Well, he didn't put an exclamation, but it seemed like, I felt like he was yelling when he said this. And then it's not in all caps, but I feel like he's angry. Why are you releasing names that are unnecessary? These people don't want to get involved, yet you are releasing their names. Not cool. If you think I'm breaking new ground on this case, like I'm some investigative journalist, you're sadly mistaken. I'm just a bumbling idiot making YouTube videos, brah. It's public record, dude. It's everywhere. These names have been released, and I think the previous family that I even referenced, like, made the names he's talking about. I think they made a video or did an interview about it. There were a couple of families that have now gone public that weren't before. Maybe they were waiting for the right price to be paid for their interview or whatever. I don't know, but it's public record, dude. It's out there. I'm not breaking new ground. All right. But thank you for the compliment. T.S. T.S. Brittany, T.S. Brit, T.S. Brittany. I'm only watching because you are. How you spell? Maybe I'm just old AF. But I've never. Is you are is just, it's just like you're saying your like YOU apostrophe RE, or any other variation of your YOUR, or is it you? Are you literally saying you are? I don't know. Anyway, I'm only watching because you are cute AF. Is that a compliment? Or is she saying my content is so bad? My content is so bad. It's like she puts it on mute. Huh. I don't know what to think about that one now. Kevin Taggart said, a full set, huh? LOL. You were even laughing when you said it. Yeah. That was awkward and hilarious and weird. Like, I was just quoting what was said. So to be saying that was kind of funny, but weird and awkward. And I have a tendency to laugh when I'm feeling awkward. Art Vandalay said 3 times on 3 different videos, and I don't know why it put it in my flag, so I didn't even see it. Just, I'm this many, okay boomer. I'm not a boomer, but I am pretty old. If I could retire, get some of that Social Security cheddar, I'm all about it. So let me know where to sign up. Arthur Vandalay, and don't think you're like clever or not so clever Seinfeld references lost on me, because I am old enough to know who Art Vandalay is. George, how's that architecture firm going? Evidently Art thought he had a pretty goddamn clever comment and wanted to comment it 3 times on different videos. I don't know, did it work? Okay. M213, I just noticed this just now, I didn't realize it. It says edited. So M213 posted this 6 days ago, edited it, still didn't include proper punctuation, but just wanted to ream me one. You stupid fuck. She's not an adult. You effing F. F you. I like how she says fuck. Like, types it out first. I don't know why I said she. Maybe because there's a she pronoun. Whoever this is, I like how they typed out fuck. And then in subsequent sentences, just put F. You effing F. F you. Okay, first of all, I mean, your grasp of the English language is clearly way superior to mine. But thank you. Thank you for watching the video. First of all, she is an adult legally. Obviously, that's what the prosecution is trying to say, is that she's not. She very well might not be an adult. She could be a minor, or she could be an adult but isn't as old as the Barnetts are saying. We don't know. But I appreciate your feedback. I'm guessing that you didn't watch any of my other videos and just watched this one, and probably didn't even watch it through where I actually talk about how I don't know whether or not anyone involved is telling the truth. And the video that this was commented on, I'm pretty sure was when I talked about the credible evidence that Natalia Barnett's an adult. I even make a point to talk about Kristine Barnett starting like a crowdfunding thing for money for legal fees and whatnot, and then I wouldn't post a link to it because she might be a criminal. Anyway, so F me, F it all, F this video for sure. 2 thumbs up for effing me. Wait, no, that came out wrong. All right, so that's where I'm going to end the video for today. It's been an interesting roller coaster ride. Let me know what you think in the comments, and maybe I'll talk about yours next time. Especially if you go tell me to F myself, I guess. If you like what I'm doing here, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. If you enjoyed this video, if you had a pleasant time, smash that like button. Do it twice for 2 likes, because that's the thing. Anyways, it's been a pleasure to see you and to be with you and to share a few minutes with you all. I appreciate you all. As always, stay classy, San Diego. I kind of feel a little bit dirty after reading all of that. It was very emotionally manipulative. I don't know if what they were saying was true or not. What is up, my brethren? This is Heckle TV. I am Jarvis Black. Thank you for coming back.
Hello, boys and girls. How are you?
Antoine and Cynthia Mans had to go to court recently to prove that they did not violate the gag order.
Typically a legal order by a court or government restricting information or comment from being made public or passed on to any unauthorized third party.
There's a blog called Justice for Natalia Grace. Evidently, the Mans were accused of providing information to this blog, and they had to go to court to squash the notion that they provided them information.
I'm innocent. I'm an angel. I'm a saint. I'm a saint.
In the process, the gag order was updated to, I think, avoid this type of situation in the future. It seems highly suspicious.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
The blog is definitely highly biased towards the Mans and Natalia Barnett's version or their side of things. I haven't taken a look at this blog yet, so I wanted to kind of go through it with you and share my thoughts on it with you. I personally don't really know who's telling the truth. I've said this many times, but to me, Natalia's story or her version of events don't quite add up to me. They didn't quite make sense. I watched the Dr. Phil interview. That interview raised a lot of questions for me. At the same time, the original story that Kristine Barnett came out with, and then later Michael was perpetuating in other media sources, their version of events didn't quite add up. Michael was saying one thing, sometimes Kristine was saying another. Overall, Kristine and Michael's version of the story didn't make sense to me. So I honestly don't know who's telling the truth. And I personally believe that the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I don't know whether she's an adult or whether she's still a child, but I am really interested to see where this case leads us. Let's take a look at this blog and see what we can find out. Is there any new information that we haven't already seen? I haven't gone all the way through it, so I guess let's just take a look. First thing, I'm a little bit skeptical about the date, Tuesday, October 29th. Nothing else has been added since then, because the Mans just this month had to go to court and prove that they didn't provide information to this blog. Why would they have only recently had to go to court about that? The gag order was placed quite a while ago. This blog is what is at the center of the issue that the Mans had to go to court. First of all, we've got Justice for Natalia Grace.blogspot.com. Got a good old classic, got a 2003 vibe going on. Little .blogspot action. Why not create a site? Okay, well, justicefornataliagrace.com is available. So they could have got a custom URL. They didn't have to do Blogger. A timeline of events. This is real. There's a lot of information here. I'm not going to be able to cover all of it. First of all, this is something that people loved. I've made a number of videos about this, and there have been a number of comments saying, just look at the pictures, just look at the pictures. I've looked at the pictures, and here's another example of where they've put in the pictures. They put a picture, it looks like, from each year back to 2009. Now, in 2009, she does look pretty young. They're saying she's 6 years old. I thought there was some inconsistencies in how old Natalia herself said that she was at different points. That might just be something I made up. Now, this picture from 2010 looks a lot different than this picture. And I don't know if these pictures if this is entirely accurate, because if you continue down, she looks a lot older here than here. And at age 9, maybe it's just the way that she's dressed here, definitely looks older in 2012. She looks younger in this picture to me than in this picture. Actually, she looks younger to me all the way to 2017 than she does in this picture from 2012 or this picture from 2010. And then there's the picture from 2018 and pictures from 2018 and 2019 where she looks way older. Up until that point, 5 years gone by between 2012 and 2017, and to me she looks older in these pictures than she does maybe this one or this one. But in this one, she looks older to me here than in most of these pictures here through 2017. And look at the difference between 2017 and 2018 is only 1 year. She looks 10 years older than in these pictures. So I guess my point is I don't know how much you can really discern from just looking at pictures. We're basically going off of our own internal biases and how people look and what ages we think people are based on how they look. And I don't know about you, but most people I know are not very good at guessing people's ages.
How old are you, McLovin?
Old enough.
Old enough for what?
Let's party.
In this case, it's really difficult to tell because of her dwarfism. I would definitely agree she looks a lot younger in this picture from 2009 than she does here in 10 years later at 2019. But when you start getting in, like, if you didn't know what year these were taken, how would you know exactly how old she is here in this picture or this picture? Maybe everyone else is smarter than me. So I thought this disclaimer was interesting because this is dated. That's why I was saying I was skeptical about the date, October 29, 2019, because this disclaimer is here. The man's just had to go to court. So to me, I would be under the impression that this was added after. We do not personally know any of the parties involved, nor have any of the involved parties provide us with photos, documents, etc. All content was found on social media. Basically, they're saying that nobody provided them data. When this case concludes, this blog will be unpublished, so they're going to take it down. The blog will be unpublished, but will remain in our own files in the event Natalia or the mans need the information for any future legal proceedings. They've got that particular bias, and it also specifically states that Natalia is and always been a minor who deserves her privacy, yet the whole thing starts off with pictures of her at various ages. Why are they publishing that information then? To me, that seems like you're trying to do what Kristine and Michael did, or what Kristine and Michael were accused of doing, which I tend to agree with, that they're trying to sway potential jurors. The information that they put out in the public is going to influence, a potential jury. All of your evidence can just be provided to the legal team. It doesn't need to be made public, right? Because then you have idiots like me with YouTube channels that are making videos about it. It just seems hypocritical. It seems counterproductive to say that you're trying to protect someone's privacy or you want to protect someone's privacy, but you're like, here's all this public information that I gathered from social media that had absolutely nothing to do with the people that were trying to defend. Something seems suspect here. Now, this is what Kristine and Michael came out and said, and this is how I found out about the story of Kristine talking to Daily Mail. Kristine said Natalia put bleach in Kristine's coffee. Natalia put Windex in Kristine's coffee. Yeah, that was one thing that I brought up in my videos that didn't add up to me, is that it was always something different. And as I recall, Natalia herself said that it was Pine Sol or lemon pledge or something like that, something that was used to polish wood. So I think Pine Sol was probably more accurate. Natalia was on Dr. Phil, seemed to back up Michael's version of events versus Kristine's, that it was lemon pledge, that she didn't actually put it in her coffee. But her explanation of that to me seemed really suspect. And, I don't know, maybe they got into a fight and she threatened to or something like that. That's where I've always said I feel like there's a lot of gray area in between. Maybe there was a lot of bad blood and beef between the Barnetts and Natalia, and that's why things kind of went sideways. Kristine said she saw Natalia attack a baby boy on a baby monitor. I don't remember that specifically. Natalia was jumping out of moving cars. I remember her making that claim. Dragged Kristine into an electric fence. Now, I recall her saying she tried to drag her into an electric fence or tried to push her into an electric fence. something along those lines. But again, that didn't really add up. And you've got somebody with dwarfism that's clearly has some sort of disability because of it, from my understanding. How are they going to drag you into an electric fence or even push you into it? Came after Kristine with a butcher knife, diagnosed as a psychopath and sociopath. Now, that I do recall for certain, them claiming that, and I called them saying they had the paperwork to back that up. Now, I haven't seen that paperwork, and I don't know if anyone has. Natalia was hearing voices, and Natalia had schizophrenia. I don't remember them saying she had schizophrenia or that was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I could be totally remembering things incorrectly, but I don't remember schizophrenia specifically. Now, the sociopathic, I definitely recall. Smearing bodily fluids on the walls, yes. I remember them saying that. Stood over them holding sharp objects when they were sleeping. I remember them saying that. Told them she was trying to kill them. I remember that. Would make statements, drawing pictures saying she wanted to kill family members, roll them up in a blanket, put them in the backyard. I remember that. Put clear thumbtacks on their stairs. I don't remember Kristine making that claim. And I've watched all of the interviews with Kristine and Michael. That's why I'm confused by some of these claims. I don't remember exactly, but again, it could just be my old man faulty memory, getting old and getting dumber as I progress through this life, carrying this meat skeleton. Through their son's homework, into the highway, them run out and get hit by a car. Okay, I remember Michael saying something about that. Yeah. Had pubic hair. Yes, they both said that. Menstrual cycle and hid the clothing in closet and or trash. Yes, I remember them making that claim. Claim they had a person speak Ukrainian to Natalia. Oh, yes. I see. So this is Michael and Kristine. I do not recall Kristine saying that. Michael said that in an interview. So, zero evidence.
There is zero evidence that they had any impact.
Yeah, I don't know that there's been zero evidence. They had medical reports from the examinations that they had. In the rest of it, I've had a lot of questions about that as well. Why has there been no evidence of really anything? And there's been a lot of comments in my videos about that. It seems like there should have been there could have easily been definitive evidence provided on either side to clear this up. Did they file police reports? Did they press charges against her? Did they file a restraining order against her? Did they file a lawsuit? Blah blah blah. Yeah, I wondered that too. A lot of people commented, why haven't they gone back to the agency? Was the agency shady? And to me, there's a lot of questions about that. Based on what Natalia said to Dr. Phil, she specifically, mentioned that she had been with a lot of different families. She specifically mentioned an incident with another family where the adoptive family thought that she had attacked their son and was trying to hurt him, trying to break his arm or something like that. Natalia said that to Dr. Phil. And so they kind of backed up some of what has been said about her history, or maybe having possibly some violent tendencies. And that's why I think it's definitely possible that there's some truth in the middle. Sounds familiar because of the plot of the movie The Orphan. A lot of people commented that that's a common theme. I mean, this blog is definitely a smear campaign against Kristine and Michael Barnett, and I gotta say, a lot of their story doesn't add up. Seems suspicious. People involved. It links to everybody's social media. Yeah, this is real private. You're really doing a good job keeping. Why does this link to an Imager account? With just pictures of her that were provided to Daily Mail. That's not real evidence of anything. How do you know that for certain is her mother? So there's certain parents that are listed. Natalia said she was with 30 different families. That's always been a big question to me. Why was she with so many different families? And there were other families that clearly thought that she was up to no good. To me, that seems suspicious as well. Additional people involved. There's just a bunch of links to social media accounts. They have Kristine and Michael's marriage license on here. Okay, Natalia admitted to an orphanage. I read some comments about people who said that and I talked about this in a previous video, who said that they had adopted a child from the Ukraine, and that a lot of the birth certificate information is not reliable with kids in these orphanages, that they fabricate documents and that they will line them up and they'll just categorize them as a certain age based on how they look. And as we already talked about, you can't really tell how old somebody is by their look. Now, I don't know if that's exactly what happened here. That's, one of those hearsay things. So I don't know if that's 100% true or not. Jesus, they've got like their previous court cases. Now she's either 6 years old according to her Ukrainian birth certificate, or she's 20 years old according to the Barnett's adjusted Indiana birth certificate. How old is this other kid in this picture? Because Natalia looks a lot older in these pictures. She looks older in these pictures, some of these pictures to me. She looks way younger in this picture than in these other ones. Okay, so, and this is when she was adopted. To one of the exams, approximately 8 years old. A little bit older than what she would have been at that time. Somebody else left a comment who said that they're familiar with these bone density tests, and it's really difficult to tell an age from those tests from what they had said. I don't know that much about them, so I don't know how accurate they are or not. Why are they putting Jacob Barnett's information in here? It's not necessary. It has nothing to do with this. Jacob Barnett, Jacob Barnett. I like how they've been very specific about all the dates, and then they're just 2011, 2012. And it's just really generic when it's convenient. You know, what did Socrates say? True wisdom is knowing that you do not know. Now, she's either 8 years old, according to her Ukrainian birth certificate, still younger than what the bone density test, although those might not be reliable. The dentist records indicate that Natalia was 8 or 9 in 2011. Michael Barnett buys a yellow Corvette. What the hell does that have to do with anything? He's definitely guilty then. This is literally a smear campaign against the Barnetts, and maybe they deserve it, maybe they don't. You know who doesn't deserve it? Is Jacob Barnett. But they just keep looping in information about him. This is interesting. December 15th, 2011, Warner Brothers buys the rights to Kristine Barnett's memoir. And I watched a video promotion about that book and all that, and I can't remember the name of it. I did a video on it and I talked about it. Warner Brothers buys the rights, so they bought the right, possibly to like make a movie or something. And here's what I don't understand. Kristine and Michael had already been in the news a lot because of Jacob and because of him being a genius, basically. They had a lot on the line. For them to just completely fabricate that Natalia Barnett is an adult when she's really a child, put her in an apartment, and just, that's a really, really sinister crime. Committing that crime and then leaving the country and going to Canada and leaving they had a lot to lose, and the media attention they'd already gotten because of Jacob Barnett and everything that had happened before that, and Kristine's book and all this stuff. They stood to lose a lot. Now that doesn't mean that people won't do awful things. I mean, look at Aaron Hernandez, had a lot to lose, and he still did what he did. Why would you take that chance? When I previously looked through all of the evidence, either Kristine and Michael were really, really good liars, or they believed what they were saying. I think that Kristine and Michael believe what they're saying. Website brought up, why didn't they file charges and whatever. It seems to me like they actually cared about Natalia. They tried to take care of her still, like even though they had left and moved away. They didn't like lose contact with her. They were like emailing constantly. She helped get her enrolled in that school. And I mean, I think they believe their version of the events to be true, or at least mostly true. They said Natalia was 8 years old in 2011. So which is it? Is she 8 in 2012 or 8 in 2011? They're not even keeping their timeline straight. So this is interesting. This talks about their doctors and saying, in reality, by changing her age to that of an adult, the Barnetts denied Natalia access to much more. She was an 8-year-old little girl in 2nd or 3rd grade, and as a result, she's now denied proper education. She's denied all the surgeries she needed as a growing minor, which made her condition much worse and daily life painful. So this will be, I'm assuming this would be part of the case, right? What the prosecution is saying is neglect. As an adult, she can now vote in elections, apply for driver's license, buy a gun, buy cigarettes, alcohol, gamble, get married. And if she committed a crime, she'd be tried as an adult. Well, yeah, no shit. They're saying she's an adult, but I like how they specifically list this. This is so like emotionally manipulative. They say all this stuff because it evokes fear and it evokes emotional response from the reader. Drivers apply for a driver's license, a gun, because they're making you picture Natalia as an 8-year-old child driving a car, buying a gun, smoking cigarettes, drinking, going to the casino, playing craps. If she screws up in any way, she'll be tried as an adult and be in prison with a bunch of hardened criminals. This is what annoys me when people don't present facts and they just spout emotional shit to try to manipulate you. I hate that. It might be true, and Kristine and Michael might be pieces of shit. Definitely possible. Like, let's just list out every hypothetical scenario. The minors get a hold of guns. Minors buy cigarettes. Minors drive cars. Minors drink alcohol. Minors gamble. Minors even get married in some cases where they lie and do that shit. Minors also commit crimes and get tried as an adults. Additionally, Michael Barnett said he and his wife would check on Natalia twice a week. Michael Barnett says Natalia lived in an apartment for a year on her own. Yeah, I think everybody said that. I don't think it was just them. This is, I remember her talking about this. So this is what Natalia had to say about her time in the apartment. I was 8 years old, almost 9. My landlord would take me to the gas station, get little things that I needed. This is what she told Dr. Phil, I'm pretty sure is where this quote's coming from. And the Barnetts would give me food that they didn't really eat, like canned food and stuff like that. First of all, the statement doesn't make sense. They would give me food that they didn't really eat. Oh, like they just gave her their trash. Is that really true? They just like bagged up all this shit that they didn't like and just threw it in her doorstep. It says canned food and stuff like that. I'm assuming that's like the microwave dinners, because that's what she specifically talked about on Dr. Phil. When you say stuff like that and you're being manipulative, it makes your story seem less credible. So they might have left her canned food and microwavable dinners, and that's what she means by stuff like that. But when you're acting like that they just left you like their leftovers, like they were in a different country, it doesn't make sense that they just drop off their trash for you to eat. Now she's 9 years old in 2012. They just said before that she was 8 in 2012, and before that said she was 8 in 2011. They can't keep their timeline straight. Kristine publishes a book singing her own glorious praise about how she parented her genius son, James Hall the Spark. Yeah, the whole thing is very self-aggrandizing. It's not a good look. Michael Barnett also states in a comment that he has autism. I don't know how this is relevant to the case, but okay. We now have 3 members in the same family claiming to be autistic. This is another attempt to be manipulative, like, oh, clearly they're lying about autism. Well, if the father has autism, or maybe a misdiagnosed or undiagnosed autism, because when he was a kid, they probably weren't looking for those same kinds of things, it would be more likely that his kids would have autism, right? So it would make that actually makes sense from a logical perspective. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's not relevant. This blog is filled with a lot of manipulative crap that just to try to make them look bad instead of focusing on the facts. So these are not facts. You're making one assumption, presuming that what you stated initially is true. I don't see any definitive evidence that that is the case. And I don't know if she's an adult or not, but there's no definitive evidence here. So they're listing the things that they sold when they moved to Canada. Okay, cool. What does that have to do with anything? This is, what? We already read this. Duplicated. All right, September 4th, 2013, Natalia's birthday. She's now 10 years old, according to her Ukrainian birth certificate. Yeah, she doesn't look like a 24-year-old there, to me. There's a lot of 24-year-olds that don't look 24. I mean, that's why Tom Holland's playing a teenager in Spider-Man. I'm not familiar with this type of dwarfism. I don't know. This picture, she looks like she could be older. This picture, not so much. This picture, kind of, possibly. You know, I don't know. This picture from 2010, she looks older than this picture from 2013. They're trying to create a timeline with these pictures, and I'm sorry, but I'm just not convinced by pictures, because pictures are two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional world. Everything we see is through our own subjective filtered lens, and so that's exactly why this is not definitive fact. They're saying she was baptized, so that's right, Antoine was a pastor. Just constantly bringing up Jacob. And Jacob doesn't have anything to do with this. His name should not be smeared as a part of this. Michael Barnett purchases a home in Indianapolis. Okay. Was revoked by the IRS. Well, that's it. We've got the definitive evidence, folks. They're criminals. They're guilty. Woo. Get it? Got it? Good. October 24th, 2016. More than 3 years after the Barnetts had allegedly abandoned Natalia, Michael Barnett's personal primary care doctor, Andrew Philip McLaren, allegedly wrote a letter stating Natalia was older than she claimed to be. In the letter, he repeats the same claims of the Barnetts in regards to Natalia's adoption, mental health, and allegations she had been committing fraud. The letter from the doctor states that Natalia was diagnosed with sociopathic personality disorder, which isn't a named personality disorder in the DSM. Why would a doctor say sociopathic personality disorder and not antisocial personality disorder? Yeah, I mean, that's a legit question.
Who is he writing the letter to? I mean, it does seem suspicious to me. Unfortunately, determining of her true age has been difficult. Records provided by officials of her native country, Ukraine, are grossly incomplete. Also, because she has the type of dwarfism, conventional methods of determining age are not useful. She has been seen by an orthopedist and an endocrinologist. Neither specialist was able to help substantiate the age assessment. Over time, it has become increasingly apparent that this patient is substantially older than she claimed to be. She was seen at a dentist in 2011 who described her dentition as an adult. Neuropsychology evaluation in 2011 described her as a fully grown with secondary sex characteristics. This signifies, I can't talk, adult sexual development. During an inpatient psychiatric hospitalization in 2012, it was stated that she was at least 14 years of age. A normal menstrual cycle was documented during that hospitalization. She was also diagnosed at that time with sociopathic personality disorder. That's what they're talking about. This doctor is his personal doctor, right? So maybe he's not a psychiatrist. So maybe he didn't know the terminology in terms of how to reference it. I mean, that's definitely possible. Which usually does not appear until at least 16 years of age, although he's writing this letter acting like saying that this is like a diagnosis. You should probably know what you're talking about. Around the time she had began admitting she was over 18, this was about 5 years ago. She has continued to fool those who have the best intention. This includes previous and current caregivers, physicians, and her adoptive parents. The biggest victims here are Michael and Kristine Barnett, who did everything in their power to provide rewards or enormous amount of stress. See, this is all subjective, emotionally manipulative shit too, and I don't like that. Just state the facts. It is my understanding that blank is once again claiming to be a child. This behavior is counterproductive to everyone involved and will disrupt the lives of those lives she infiltrates. See, that's another like loaded word, infiltrate. I don't know. This seems pretty manipulative as well. But if all of this stuff is true, this is from a doctor. At least the stuff up here, and maybe the doctor's frustrated because they had figured this stuff out, and maybe that frustration is coming out in this emotional manipulation phrasing. I don't know. 2017. She's now either 14 years old, according to her Ukrainian birth certificate, or she's 28 years old, according to the Barnett's adjusted birth certificate. She looks like she could definitely be older there. I don't know. Natalia posts Halloween video on YouTube.
Hey guys, it's Greg, and today is Halloween. Dude, why are you doing that? I'm vlogging here.
Hey guys, I know I said I was going to do my face, but I'm doing so sorry, guys.
I'll be back again.
I can't definitively tell you that that's a kid or an adult. I mean, did you guys watch Love is Blind? I mean, Jessica was acting like a teenager on that show. And then Mark, who's 10 years younger than her, seemed like he was like in his 40s. I was like, I just want to settle down and have kids, man. My point is I don't know. I can't tell anything definitive about that. There's still no facts here. Here again. So this is an important point because I've talked about this on previous videos about this. They weren't willing to make any changes. And there were 2 court cases about her age. And both of them, the first one determined that she was, significantly older than she said she was. And the second court case didn't change anything. That, to me, holds weight. This being reviewed in court twice, and then the second time them upholding the original decision to change her age, I don't know. I'm really getting a sick feeling in my stomach that they're constantly bringing up Jacob's achievements as though it feels manipulative in the sense of like they're saying, look at how they supported this other kid and they didn't support Natalia, and maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but that's how it feels. It's like Natalia is growing up during this time, and look at how great Jacob's doing because he has supportive parents, and like why are they listing all of Jacob's stuff on here? It has nothing to do with Natalia. And that's the end of the blog. So that was pretty interesting. I kind of feel a little bit dirty after reading all of that. One, I think there was a lot of information that shouldn't have been included in the blog about the other children that weren't a part of this. If Natalia is still a child, she's going to be impacted and currently is impacted by this case and probably will be for the rest of her life. There's no need to drag other kids through the mud. And there was a lot of that blog that was dedicated to Jacob. To me, it was unnecessary. The other kids, again, unnecessary. And frankly, I came away from that blog feeling like it was very emotionally manipulative. I don't know if what they were saying was true or not, but I didn't see any new facts really, or any hard evidence one way or another. Both sides that I've seen have, you've got a Ukrainian birth certificate paperwork. Well, the Barnetts have 2 different court cases and a statement from a doctor saying that this person is an adult. I'll be really interested to see what more comes out of this during the trial. Is there additional evidence that we haven't seen yet? Is there additional evidence that the prosecution has? Is there additional evidence that the defense has? I don't know. I'll be really interested to see what comes out. Both Kristine and Michael will have separate trials, so it'll be interesting to see how they're tried differently, what information comes out in each of those trials, and how that all plays out in court. All right, that's where I'm going to end today's video. If you like what I'm doing here, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. If you like this video, if you enjoyed it, if you had a good time, if you'd want to tell your mom about it, hit that like button. You definitely want to do that. Share it with your friends. Thank you for taking the time out. There's a lot of other things that you could be doing. You could be reading the new article about some virus or something like that. I don't know. But I'm glad that you were here. I'm glad to spend this time with you. And I'll talk to you soon. Yeah. I'm not saying that everything on the blog was a lie, but when you lie about a lot of different things, it makes the rest of the things that you say just not as credible. What is up, my brethren? This is Heckle TV. I am Jarvis Black. Thank you for coming back. Welcome to the show. Last week I posted a video about a blog called Justice for Natalia Grace. And some people were a little bit upset that I called the blog manipulative, and then I felt dirty after reading it. Dirty. So buckle up, buckaroos. This is going to be a bumpy ride. Over the course of this last week, I was informed that the blog is not exactly as it seemed. And I was absolutely correct to call its content into question. The blog was not only heavily skewed against the Barnetts regarding this case, but it was heavily comprised of content that had absolutely nothing to do with the case at all. It documented the other children's accomplishment, things like the Barnett's vehicle purchases, home purchases, the Barnett's marriage license. And while the blog does contain some relevant evidence, such as Natalia's Ukrainian birth certificate, it wastes a lot of time on things that are irrelevant to the case. The blog is covering up, lying, or hiding, however you want to put it, multiple things. My guess is that it did that because of the man's having to go to court. Firstly, there's a web archive of the blog as it was a couple of months ago, on January 18th. I was right to be suspicious about the date. The blog has been modified a lot since the date that was listed on this post. The date shows October 29th, and it's definitely been modified since then. It's completely different. The date that it lists, October 29th, is not the date that this content was created. And that's a flat out lie. Secondly, the previous version of the blog had a picture of Natalia from 2008. In the current version, that's completely gone. Why did they remove a picture of Natalia from 2008? Doesn't that only strengthen their case? Unless the original version, or the version from January 18th, was incorrect, which means that the blog probably doesn't have accurate information. Maybe they just wanted it to look symmetrical or something. It doesn't make sense that they would remove the picture. What difference does that make? The picture that they had of Natalia from 2008 didn't look like a great photo. It looked a little bit sinister. So maybe it was just kind of conjuring the wrong image that they were trying to portray. I don't know. What do you guys think? Why was this taken off? The third thing is the disclaimer was changed. The disclaimer on January 18th had an extra sentence at the very beginning that said, the information we are posting regarding Natalia Grace is for the sole purpose of disproving the Barnett's claims and help restore Natalia's reputation. Why was that taken off? I mean, that's clearly the motivation of the blog. What difference does that make? Why was that removed? Because they wanted to seem like they were more objective or something? The next thing I noticed was that there was a P.O. box that was listed so that people could send gifts and I guess whatever they wanted to Natalia, and it would be sent to this P.O. box in care of Antoine Mans. Now, this is why the Mans had to go to court, because they had to basically say that they didn't violate the gag order by providing this P.O. box to the blog. So the blog removed the P.O. box. Evidently, they were in communication with the Mans because they provided it to the blog owner. They were at least involved in it enough to provide the P.O. box. I mean, this is sort of a smoking gun of sorts that shows that the blog author is in communication with the Mans. And there is definitive evidence on the blog itself that the blog author communicated with the Mans. The blog also goes on to list all of the things that Natalia likes, including clothing sizes, food preferences. But why was this P.O. box information removed? They needed to cut ties from this blog because it didn't look good, and the judge didn't think so either.
Ms. Daly, please try and control yourself.
My point is that if everything with this blog and the content and its creation and its curation and its posting onto the web was on the up and up, why would any of this have to be removed? Now, there are a lot of differences when it comes to the actual body of this blog. I don't have an archive of what it looked like when it was posted on November 6th. The blog is not only lying about just one thing, it's lying about multiple things. And I understand that the person or people that created this had good intentions, but good intentions don't mean anything if you're violating laws or slickly navigating around them or through them, and you're lying to try to get your point across. It doesn't help your cause. And I'm not going to be able to go through every single change. And I don't think that every single change from the old version to the new version the current version is relevant. I'm going to post a link to the web archive of this old version. And if you're interested in comparing and contrasting, you can definitely do that. And there may be something that I've missed. It has been gradually curating and gathering content over time. Things like Michael Barnett's Corvette aren't on the original version, I don't think, but they are on the current one because that's super important to know about. So now I want to talk about what I think is the most relevant or important change from the previous version of the blog to the current version of the blog, and that's that the comment section was removed. I think that the reason they deleted the comment section is because in the comment section, it shows commented that they want to be able to send Natalia gifts and gift cards and whatnot. Somebody listed as the blog admin responded and said, that's a great idea. I'll ask the Mans. And then below that comment, they said, here's the info. I talked to the Mans. Here's that information, basically. There's literal proof that the blog author was in communication with the Mans. How did the blog author or authors know how to get a hold of the Mans in the first place? So do they know them? Do they know somebody who knows them? Had they communicated with them about the content prior to this? Now, what was actually communicated? We don't know exactly. Their testimony in court about the blog didn't make any sense either. Antoine Mans said that he doesn't even know how to use Facebook, and yet he can create a GoFundMe, he can post YouTube videos.
And we thank God for you for everything that you guys have been doing as far as the encouraging words and the donations for the GoFundMe.
Something seems a little bit off. The interesting thing about this part of the story is how dumb I am. Because of my stupidity and not, flushing out every possible source, through a backwards search, I found an article that actually does list a person who claims to be the owner of the blog. So because I didn't find this information first, I went on this scavenger hunt. But I started with a reverse lookup for the P.O. box. How is that listed? And the first thing that came up was trucking company named Kurt's Trucking in Crawford, Indiana, and the phone number for them was disconnected. I was curious if there was any kind of connection between this trucking company and the Mans family. No, definitely not. It looks like this Kurt's Trucking company was just probably had that P.O. box at some point in the past. When I searched for the P.O. box, there were 3 results. and 2 of them had to do with Kurt's trucking. The third one had to do with a Twitter account from somebody named Jenny Frog, at Jen Wheeler. There's only 3 results, and one of them is a specific person. Well, as it turned out, Jen Wheeler is the creator of this blog, and she first tweeted about it on November 6th. And she specifically states in a tweet, she created the blog, she curated this information, and yet on the blog itself, she says it was created by a group of people. If you stretch your imagination to mean that she got the information from other people, so she's just selflessly counting them also as the authors of the blog, okay, sure. The reality is she created the blog, she owns it, she made it. I'm not saying that everything on the blog was a lie, but when you lie about a lot of different things, it makes the rest of the things that you say just not as credible. The most interesting thing that I found from her Twitter account, I thought, was just that the search result that brought up the P.O. box, that tweet didn't exist on her Twitter profile, which means that she deleted it. Now, why would she delete the information with her P.O. box on her Twitter account as well as her blog and all of this? Maybe because she did something she wasn't supposed to? And now she's trying to cover it up. On a side note, Jen likes classic Saturday Night Live. She likes Impractical Jokers. She's a huge fan of A Christmas Story.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.
So we've definitely got that in common. So back to the court hearing. So here's what the judge had to say about it. The judge ruled that that though he found individuals who make blogs solely to discredit parties and ongoing legislation distasteful, pretty accurate, the defense team had not proven its case to the level necessary to hold the mans in contempt of court. To me, I interpret that as the mans violated the rules, but just not to the degree where they felt like they should be punished. But then the court went ahead and amended the gag order to include blogs so that there wasn't any confusion. People keep saying that the mans were cleared of wrongdoing in this situation, and I don't think that's the most accurate way to describe it. I think the reality is they just got off on a technicality. Alright, that's where I'm going to end today's video. I hope you enjoy these videos. If you do, smash that like button. The dislike button, unfortunately, doesn't work. It's out of commission. The detour is through the thumbs up. If you click on that, you'll get a drop down for a dislike. If you're new here, please subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications. You're going to have to do that. You just have to. You can't get enough of me. I know you need more, and I'm trying to give it to you. I'm trying. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Yeah. And then a number of years later, files were charged.
Idiot.
What is up, my brethren? This is Heckle TV. I am Jarvis Black. Thank you for coming back. I'm back again today with another update to the Kristine and Michael Barnett case. If you're not familiar with the situation, I will link to my playlist down in the description. I've made a number of videos on this, so I don't want to go back and rehash all of the details. So basically, the long and the short is that Kristine and Michael Barnett adopted what they thought was a 6-year-old girl from Ukraine. They believed that she wasn't 6 years old and that she was actually an adult, and that she was swindling them, and alleged that she did some creepy things to them and the family. Their son got accepted to school in Canada because he's I guess a genius. They changed her birth date to September of 1989, and they put her in an apartment, and then they bolted to Canada. There's kind of a muddy story about exactly what happened, but basically she was living on her own. This other family discovered her, took her in as though she was their child. Her age was challenged in the court each time the previous ruling about her being an adult was upheld. And then a number of years later, around 6 years later, after they had left her in the apartment, the Barnetts were charged with child abandonment and neglect. So that takes us to the update. Kristine Barnett had filed a motion to have the charges dropped. Earlier this month, the judge dropped 3 out of 6 of the charges. Basically everything regarding child neglect charges. This was the biggest debate as to whether or not Natalia was actually a child. Well, the judge decided that is irrelevant. Basically, the judge said that the statute of limitations is already passed, and that if they were going to file child neglect charges, that needed to happen years ago. Michael Barnett also filed to have things dismissed, and it looks like he's also probably going to get that since Kristine did. The prosecution is still moving forward with the adult abandonment charges. Natalia does classify as a dependent because of her severe dwarfism. It seems like the prosecution has every right to pursue charges against Kristine and Michael Barnett because they did abandon her when they moved to Canada. So even though she's legally an adult, they didn't have a right to just leave her on her own with her disability. I don't know whether or not Natalia is an adult or a child. There's just not enough definitive information to really know one way or another. Some other information that came out during the hearing that I thought was interesting was that the prosecutors showed evidence of a DNA test from the woman in Ukraine who claimed to be Natalia's mother. They said the DNA test was a match, and the mother says that she gave birth to a girl with severe dwarfism on September 4th, 2003, and that she gave the girl up for adoption. And while that might not matter at this point, maybe not to the court, but for the rest of us that are asking, was she a child? Was she an adult? The DNA test with the mother, I mean, obviously we're just going off of the mother's word still at this point. It doesn't seem like she has any reason to lie about what the actual birth date was at this point, but I suppose you never know. People do weird things all the time. It seems legit. So what do you guys think? Do you think that the mother is lying and that Natalia is actually still an adult? Do you think that the child neglect charges should have been dropped? Do you think they should face, more charges, harsher sentencing? What do you guys think should be done in this case? Do you think the judge made the right decision? All right, that's where I'm going to end today's video. Again, if you want to get caught up on all of the gritty details of this case, I'll drop a link to the playlist in the description. As promised, I will keep posting updates to this case as they come out. It'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward now that some of the charges were dropped. If you like this video, definitely, take a moment to hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Hit the bell for notifications, and you guys are amazing. I'll talk to you soon. Yeah. What is up, my brethren? This is Heckle TV. I am Jarvis Black. Thank you for coming back. I really, really wanted to be done talking about the story, but I kind of had a feeling that just wasn't going to be the case. With the way that court cases get dragged out and appealed and appealed and appealed, I don't know. Who knows? This case may never be fully resolved or done. I don't know. A lot of people are still watching and commenting on my old videos about this Natalia Barnett case, so I thought it would be good to provide an update. Hey, give the people what they want.
Tonight at 11.
So let me kind of quickly recap this story and then add the updates at the end. Okay, so Kristine and Michael were charged in September of 2019 with 6 counts of neglect of a dependent and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit neglect of a dependent. So the Barnetts adopted a girl who they were told was 6 years old, named Natalia from Ukraine, with dwarfism. The Barnetts claim that shortly after that, they started to see signs that she was not actually a 6-year-old child, but actually an adult pretending to be a child. They said they had tests done and had her evaluated by doctors, and they claimed that she admitted that she was an adult and also admitted to having mental health disorders. Supposedly a doctor diagnosed this. Basically, they claimed that she was a sociopath and that she admitted she was a sociopath. The Barnetts claimed that Natalia tried to poison them, that she threatened and committed acts of violence against them and their other children, and basically that she just put their lives in danger. Pretty much on par with what everyone's talking about, the similarities between the plot for the movie The Orphan and this case. So they went to court and had her age changed. And basically she became a legal adult and remains a legal adult to this day. So their son was set to go to college in Canada. Evidently the Barnetts didn't want to take her with. They put her in an apartment and supposedly set her up with some state care, potentially income, some kind of state services. Not exactly sure on the details. It seems kind of fuzzy. Some people claim that maybe that wasn't the case. I've seen other sources saying that yes, she was set up with state assistance and that Michael Barnett was receiving that state assistance and then paying her bills for her. There's a lot of discrepancy on who actually did what. There's some claims that she was actually evicted, and then I've seen other places that no, it was just the one apartment. We do know that Michael and Kristine put her in an apartment, supposedly paid her rent and her bills, set her up with state assistance, and then moved to Canada with their son while he was going to school. I guess is a genius, and was young. It's like he's not like normal college age. We're moving up to Canada to go to the school with him, because he was also a minor. Yeah, there's some muddy details about what actually happened, if she was supposedly a child, whether or not she could actually take care of herself in that apartment. But at some point, she was discovered by Cynthia Mans. And Cynthia Mans and her husband Antoine took Natalia in, did not believe that she was an adult, informally adopted her, and have been raising her as one of their own children ever since. They challenged her age in court, I believe, a couple of times. Her age was upheld. And then around 6 or 7 years later, basically September of 2019 is a reference, that's when Michael and Kristine were charged. I think it's interesting that Natalia's age has been upheld in court like multiple times, at least 2 or 3 times, I believe. You know, I've seen arguments that that's really based more around jurisdiction and statute of limitations. Regarding the actual evidence for her age, it doesn't really seem like there's a lot. It's really hard to tell what's factual and what's not. There's obviously the Ukrainian birth certificate, but a lot of people have called that into question. And is that definitive evidence? I don't know. If the Barnetts have statements from a doctor or doctors claiming, you know, her age and her mental health issues and whatnot, it didn't fully seem totally credible to me either. In the fall of 2020, Kristine and Michael Barnett were able to get some of the charges dropped, and then, you know, within a couple of months, those appeals were filed. The appeals have been accepted. The state filed a motion to consolidate the appeals for Kristine and Michael Barnett, so they were in a single case. That was granted a couple of weeks ago. The state asked for an additional 30 days to file their brief because they needed time to consolidate both of the cases, the files from Kristine and Michael Barnett, and they wanted time to be able to put all of that together. The Superior Court judge granted that. So basically, within the next 30 days, we will hopefully have a consolidated case, a filing from the state showing that I would assume outlines all of their evidence against Kristine and Michael Barnett. And that will be really interesting to see. Has there been new information from the previous filings where charges were dropped? Is there additional information that we don't know about yet? At one point, I read an article saying that the prosecution had DNA evidence from Natalia's birth mother, who also claims that she was born in 2003. Does that DNA test make that case that she's a minor more solid? Is that even a factor anymore in these appeals? I don't even know. That's one question that I have as well. Are they going to address whether or not she's a minor in these appeals? Basically, that was the issue with the previous court. They said they couldn't address those because there is, from what I understand, a case to be made for neglect because of Natalia's dwarfism, even if she is legally an adult. Whether or not she actually is that going to be the basis for the case, that they are just bringing charges of neglect because of Natalia's disability due to her dwarfism? It seems like Kristine and Michael Barnett's defense is predicated upon Natalia being an adult as her guardians or caretakers or whatever after the adoption, regardless of her legal age. Did they still have a legal obligation to take care of her at that point? Anyway, it'll be really interesting to see how this all shakes out. And like I said, within the next month, they have to file their briefing, so we'll know what it is that they have to say. So I'll keep an eye out for that, and I'll share my thoughts when it comes out, if you care about it. As far as my opinion about the case, neither sides of the stories that I have heard so far really make sense to me. They both seem to have holes and inconsistencies in them that just don't make sense. I really just hope that the truth comes out, and that if there's justice to be served, it gets served. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. I'll talk to you soon. Yeah. I'm still just as confused as ever. What? What is up, my brethren? This is Heckle TV. I am Jarvis Black. Thank you for coming back. All right, so where did we leave off before? Kristine and Michael Barnett were accused of neglect. Charges were dismissed. The state of Indiana filed an appeal. There was a whole bunch of like continuances or whatever filed so that the state could get their case together. Kristine and Michael just recently filed their response. So there is a major update to this case. And I've read through everything. The state heavily went in on the credibility of Natalia's age. And I was really, really surprised by that. And in my opinion, I think that was a mistake. The reason that I think it's a mistake to continue to challenge her age in court is that it's already been done. It's already been challenged multiple times in the probate court, and it's been upheld. Unlike all of the YouTube comments and commenters that think it's just super easy to definitively determine her age, clearly it's not. Otherwise, the state would have provided some definitive evidence by now. From what I can tell and from what I read, they just rehashed the same evidence that they had before, citing the adoption papers, the Ukrainian birth certificate, and the adoption court ruling. In reading through the state's own argument, they said that the Manns challenged her age multiple times. They finally ended up back in the probate court where both sides, they presented arguments, they had witnesses, and the court decided to uphold her age. So the state's argument there is that the ruling wasn't valid because the state wasn't represented as a part of that court hearing. Again, I'm just an idiot with an opinion and a YouTube channel, but I don't see how that makes the court ruling invalid. The state's argument repeats over and over and over again. Seriously, it's like a broken record if you read through the paperwork. That her age wasn't properly litigated and basically boils down to, nah, that's not fair. Side note, if you want a fun drinking game, read through the state's filing and just look for the word unfair. Don't get me wrong, regardless of if that's right or wrong. I just don't see the evidence there. But again, I'm an idiot. Maybe there's something big that I'm missing. In my stupid opinion, if the state wanted to go after the Barnetts, I feel like the focus should have been on neglect of a dependent with disabilities. And they do talk about that some in their argument, but their main focus is on her age. And I do want to address one thing, because I've seen multiple times in the comments, because I've brought this up before about the neglect of a dependent with disabilities. I've seen people comment like, oh, well, just because Natalia is a little person doesn't mean that she's disabled. That is true. But even in the state's own argument, the argument is that she is disabled because of her type of dwarfism that's causing issues with her knees and hips. Also, they're saying because of the neglect of the Barnetts that she needed certain surgeries that she didn't get. That has caused additional issues because they weren't done, in a timely manner or whatever. The other issue, evidently, I feel like both sides argued this pretty well, is the statute of limitations. The state is saying that the charges that were dismissed because of the statute of limitations doesn't apply because the neglect, the crime being committed, was ongoing over a stretch of multiple years from like 2013 to 2016. The Barnetts are arguing, well, that applies because evidently 3 of the charges no longer exist after 2014. So they're saying that the charges aren't valid. In that regard, I have no idea. How do you make that call? The judge is going to have to make that decision. Somebody who's way more qualified than I am to, sort that out. The other thing I kept hearing a lot about, the DNA of the mother's a match. I didn't see any reference to that in the state's argument. I didn't see any definitive evidence from them. Now, granted, a lot of the exhibits are confidential. So there may be evidence in this case that is behind lock and key and we can't see it. Now, who did provide a lot of evidence were Kristine and Michael. Some of the more interesting stuff in Michael's filing, there was an investigation in 2012 with a detective that met with the Barnetts and Natalia. The detective noted that Natalia's speech was very developed. The detective met with ICE and noted the existence of adoption recommendation documents that indicated Natalia's age was in question. Natalia allegedly told the detective that the children's home that she was in Ukraine told her to lie about her age so that she could get adopted. The detective closed that case and referred the Barnetts to an attorney who helped them with the age change with the probate court. Kristine also included a number of pieces of evidence. Again, these pieces of evidence are referenced in the documents. I can't see exactly what they were because they're listed as confidential. She provided evidence that Natalia allegedly admitted to a doctor that she was over 18 and had been lying to get treated like a child. She provided evidence that Natalia met with a psychotherapist to whom she admitted being over 18 multiple times. Department of Child Services investigated, and she allegedly told one of the case managers that she was in her 30s and that she wanted to kill Kristine so that Michael could raise her. Again, I don't know what that evidence looks like that's been provided to substantiate that claim, but it's in the court filing. I would have to imagine there would have to be something there to substantiate that. Another family case manager with DCS reported that Natalia was incredibly inconsistent with her age, that she gave her ages ranging from 23 to 35, stating that she didn't want anyone to know her real age because she was afraid of being sent back to the Ukraine. Kristine also provided evidence that in August of 2012, LaRue Carter Hospital charged her for being disruptive and propositioning male patients. In September of 2012, Natalia was hospitalized another couple of times for threatening to stab her brother and for trying to burn down her apartment. Again, this is not all the evidence that was provided by the Barnetts. It's just some of what was referenced that I hadn't really heard widely talked about, as opposed to just statements in the media or things like that we've seen before. And as I keep saying, like, look, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal expert or anything like that. I'm just an idiot who happened to stumble upon this case and became really, really interested in what is actually going on here. I'm not even a fan of the movie The Orphan. I've still never seen it. I have no idea. All of this stuff, the things that Barnetts are accused of is alleged. The things that Natalia's being accused of is alleged at this point. What is her real age? I don't know. I was really surprised that the prosecution, that the state didn't bring up any DNA evidence, anything from the mother or anything like that. That makes me feel like the state doesn't think that the person who claimed to be the mom is a credible source, or there just isn't enough factual information to back that up. And maybe I missed it. I don't know. So what do you guys think? Did I miss anything from the court documents that you thought was interesting that I should have brought up and talked about? Let me know in the comments down below. And what do you think about this case? It seems like most people are kind of dug in on their side. Either they think, the whole thing's a fraud and it is just like the movie The Orphan, or they think that, Natalia was actually a child and the whole thing was fabricated by the Barnetts, who are fraudsters. And every time I look at a new piece of evidence, a new court filing, I'm still just as confused as ever. I don't know whether or not she was really a child. From what I can see, just logically taking any kind of emotion out of it, I don't see definitive evidence that she was a child. I also don't see definitive evidence that she's an adult. Whether or not she was an adult, I always come back to the same question, which is, were the Barnetts justified in putting her in an apartment, paying for a year, and then moving to Canada? Even if she was an adult, given that she has disabilities due to her dwarfism, was that an okay thing to do? Was that right? And my guess is probably not. I don't know. There's a lot of nuance to this case, and there's a lot of competing information and facts. It's hard to know exactly what is true and not. We'll have to wait for the judge's ruling on this. All right, that's it for me today. That has been your update that I promised you. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Yeah. I'm not one to say I told you so, but toot toot. Motherfuckers, toot toot, okay? Because I told you so. What is up, my brethren? This is Heckle TV. I am Jarvis Black. Thank you for coming back. Wow. Oh, look, this first part is just for the 5 people who regularly watch my videos. And I just want to say I'm sorry that I haven't uploaded in the last couple of months. It's been extremely busy. I fought a Yeti. I boxed a bear in a celebrity the bear was the celebrity, not me, boxing match. And of course I lost. It was devastating and I needed time to recover. So I'm sure you can see that there's a different background behind me. And that's because I moved again. And now I'm in an indeterminate warehouse in the middle of the desert. And that's where my captors are holding me right now. The ransom that they're asking for my freedom is 10 Kit Kats, 1 box of Juji fruits, and a large bag of black licorice from Costco. I mean, I don't know who even eats black licorice anymore, but you can see the sadistic people that I'm dealing with just based on their ransom demands.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
What we're really here today to talk about is that there's an update to the Natalia Barnett case. I guess I shouldn't really be calling it the Natalia Barnett case because it's really the Kristine and Michael Barnett case, because the state of Indiana tried to prosecute them for a number of charges for neglect because they adopted a girl from Ukraine who they thought was a child, and then some things started to happen, and they claim that basically she was an adult pretending to be a child. They set her up with state care, put her in an apartment, and moved to Canada where their son was going to college. Like 6 years later or so, the state of Indiana was like, hey, that thing you did back then was a bad thing, and we want to charge you with it. Now, I've made a number of videos about this case, so I really don't want to get into all of the nitty-gritty details. Again, I have a playlist. I'll link the playlist in the description. You can check out videos that I've made where I go into excruciating detail and everything that's been talked about on both sides. What happened is some of the charges were dropped. Most of the charges were dropped, basically. And the state was like, no, we don't want that to happen. Well, they filed an appeal, and the appeal was dismissed. In my last video about this case, I went through the appeal in some pretty good detail and talked about the evidence that was presented by both sides, the state and the Barnetts. And as I said in the last video, the state really didn't have a case.
The state heavily went in on the credibility of Natalia's age. And I was really, really surprised by that. And in my opinion, I think that was a mistake. The reason that I think it's a mistake to continue to challenge her age in court is that it's already been done. It's already been challenged multiple times in the probate court, and it's been upheld.
I was like, I don't know if I'm not a lawyer. I was like, I don't know if there's something I'm missing here, but they didn't have a case to me. I really didn't know what they were basing their appeal on, because they didn't provide any real evidence justifying their position of why the charges should be reinstated. Nothing that they said really held any water. They said that the state wasn't a party to the litigation. Look, the appeals court said that they were. They said that the state, and they provided past precedent for why that was the case. Basically, the appeals court slammed the state's appeal in just about every possible way. I'm not one to say I told you so, but toot toot. Motherfuckers, toot toot, okay? Because I told you so. I'm not saying one way or another. I don't know whether or not Natalia was an adult at the time the Barnetts adopted her or not. What I do know is the state presented a horrible case. The charges were dismissed. They appealed it, and the appeal was fucking shot down. I'm sorry, either the state has just done a piss poor job of prosecuting this case, which is possible, or there just isn't the evidence to support it. There's all that we can do on, and that's what I've said from the beginning, is I just want to see the facts of this case to make a judgment. All of the recent filings where basically the Barnetts and the state have put forth everything that that we can possibly see as the public. Some of the exhibits are classified, but everything that I can see, there's nothing to indicate that the state should have won that appeal. Now they say they want to go to the Supreme Court, and they'll try to do that. They'll try to go to the state Supreme Court and see what happens. I think it's a waste of everybody's time at this point, because we've seen court after court after court after court uphold the ruling. And I think they need to let go of that and move on. If they wanted to actually prosecute the Barnetts, they needed, in my opinion, again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a moron with opinions, they needed to pursue the charges stemming from neglect of a dependent with disabilities. I've brought this up before, but I'm not saying that Natalia is disabled because she's a little person. According to the court documents and what's been filed, there is some issues with Natalia's bone growth formation and stuff like that that's causing her to have issues where she was supposedly requiring surgeries that the Barnetts didn't get her, and those things that could have helped her growth and development. Like, I don't see why they can't pursue that, but they have the entire case that they've focused on so far is regarding her age and saying, well, no, she wasn't an adult at this time and the Barnetts shouldn't have changed her age. There's just nothing to back that up. Nothing. People keep talking about a DNA test of the mother. Oh, they have a DNA test of the mom. People keep bringing that up in the comment section. Like, where's it? Where's this DNA test? And if they're withholding evidence, again, then that just shows how inept they are. And that's a disservice to Natalia. And maybe Natalia should sue the state prosecutor. But again, I don't think that's the case. I think if they had the evidence, they would present it. That's the situation as it stands right now. They want to pursue the Supreme Court. Now, whether the Supreme Court will actually accept the case, that remains to be seen. And whether they actually will file with the Supreme Court, that remains to be seen. They could very well do that. And that could very well change everything about the case. I just don't see how it could at this point. But again, I'm nobody. Just a guy with a microphone in front of a camera talking about my opinion based on what I've seen following this case, the last couple of years. That's where I'm going to end today's video. I appreciate you guys stopping by. I appreciate you watching. Share your opinions in the comments section. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you hate the way my face looks? I really do appreciate your comments, good and bad and everything in between. Thank you so much for watching. I love that you're here. And if you are one of the people here to the end, you are just that much more special to me. So just know that. Okay, bye. Yeah. If you're withholding evidence, then you're not doing your job. What is up, my brethren? This is Echo TV. I am Jarvis Black. Thank you for coming back.
Well.
Here we are again.
At last, we meet for the first time for the last time.
I think we're kind of at an impasse, and I don't mean to make this another I told you so video, but tooting my own horn.
I told you so, I told you so.
The Indiana Supreme Court declined to hear the Barnett case. There was a 3-2 vote, and they were denied. We're not interested. Back when the state's appeal was rejected, I said, I don't know why they think they can take this to the Supreme Court. They don't have much of a case. The prosecution brought charges against Kristine and Michael Barnett. The court basically threw them out, and the state appealed. The appeals court upheld the decision. The state thought, no, we're going to take this all the way to the Supreme Court, and now here we are. I've been holding off on making a new video about this because I was kind of waiting for all of the Supreme Court filings to kind of come in. This has come to a lot quicker resolution than I thought. Back in October, in the filing, they said they had new evidence. I was like, okay, let's see what we're looking at here, because that's what I've been saying all along. There just isn't the evidence to overturn the ruling on her age. When they petitioned to change her age, then it was challenged. There was a hearing about that with witnesses. The court ruled to uphold her 1989 birth date instead of 2003. The state tried to say they weren't a party to that. Multiple courts have said, no, that's not correct. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let's go through some of the court documents and the state's filing and kind of look at some of the highlights piece by piece. As I've mentioned a bunch of times in multiple videos about this, the state just doesn't appear to have a case. This Supreme Court filing didn't do anything to change my mind about that. They basically filed the exact same statements that they have filed this entire time, going back to the original charges. Now, if they have definitive evidence, that should have been filed a long time ago. I don't understand why they're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Isn't there an Einstein quote, right? doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity or whatever. It's like they're so convinced that they're right that they just didn't think that maybe they should stop and reassess, reevaluate their strategy along the way. It's like they just had blinders on.
I'm blind the whole goddamn time.
And here's the thing from right off. They say, to facilitate their crimes, the Barnetts went and changed her age in 2012 so that they could abandon her between 2013 and 2016. If that's the case, then they would have had to have been planning this out for years prior to that as well. Like in 2010, when they were clearly thought that there was something up with her age and they were having tests done and there was a mental health facility involved. Even though they didn't know that their son Jacob was going to go to school in Canada, they started planning out how to abandon Natalia in 2013, like 3 or 4 years prior to that. So it's like right away, the state's argument doesn't make any sense. One of the things they keep falling back on is that the Barnetts were doing this secret scheming thing to abandon Natalia, except for the fact that there's documented records of the Barnetts contacting police, child protective services, adult protective services. They went to the police with their issue and the police directed them to an attorney that could help them with the age change process. If you were planning all of this abandonment, like you're going to involve all of the state services and these people that could get you in trouble and the police department directly, that's like a burglar saying like, hey guys, don't worry about me. I'm not going to rob this house over here. That's definitely not going to happen. So don't even bother looking over here. I'm totally not going to rob that place. Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. Regardless if that even makes sense at all, it doesn't jive with the state's narrative of them secretly trying to change her age and then abandon her. You can be extradited from Canada. So it's not like they try to make it sound like they just abandoned her so they could go to Canada and like, oh, we're in another country. Guess what? If you commit crimes in the US and move to Canada, they're hauling your ass back here to face trial. The only way that would work is if you committed a crime secretly and then went to a country that doesn't extradite. So the state's argument doesn't make any fucking sense. It's so aggravating. It's so annoying to read the state's argument. This is not even me siding with the Barnetts because I don't necessarily think that what they did was right. I don't know whether or not Natalia was an adult or was a child when she was adopted by the Barnetts. I have no idea. But what I do know is the facts in the case don't bear out the state's argument. I've read through it over and over again, all of their filings, and it's just not there. If they have the evidence and haven't provided it, then they have completely flubbed this case up. They've completely screwed up. And like I said before, maybe Natalia should file a lawsuit against them or something for doing such a horrible job in prosecuting this case. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I've said that many times. So maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't think so because multiple courts have agreed with me. Okay, so they go on to say that the appeals court decision doesn't give meaningful consideration to the justness of such a result. The substantial evidence that the judgment was procured in bad faith. The evidence was inaccurate. And I don't know if I can add more to this than what I had already said, but trying to say all of these other court rulings, not just the ones that have been involved in the criminal prosecution of Kristine and Michael Barnett, but the multiple court cases in the probate court determining her age, then all of those hearings and all of those witnesses and all of that evidence, they're basically saying it was all fabricated, it's all fake, and those other courts don't know what they're talking about. But I find it hard to believe that every single court and every single hearing that's happened between then and now, every other court has effed up, and every other judge is just a big dumb idiot that doesn't understand and hasn't taken consideration, basically the way that they're wording it, to the justness of the case. I don't fully believe that. The facts do not bear that out. And that's what the courts have shown. The last thing I want to touch on about this particular filing, which I briefly mentioned earlier, which is that the state said that they have evidence that no court has seen. Now, again, I'm not an attorney, but what the fuck? What are you talking about? What do you mean there's evidence that no court has ever seen? There were 2 hearings before about her age when it was challenged. Why didn't this evidence come up then? If no court has seen this evidence, it's either brand spanking shiny new, or you've been withholding it. And like I've said in previous videos, and I even said it earlier, I think I'll say it again. If you're withholding evidence, then you're not doing your job. You're now in a court filing highlighting your own ineptitude. There's no reason why any evidence shouldn't have been presented before. If your entire case was based on the discrepancy of her age, then that should have come up. What the hell are you doing? I don't even have a dog in this fight. I've just been covering the story for 2 years, and I'm just so sick of hearing the same thing. It just seems stupid. And that's a disservice to Natalia. If Natalia was actually a child when she was adopted, and you're trying to pull this bullshit like, oh, you don't know what cards I've got close to my vest. Well, guess what? You're at the Supreme Court now. You're fucked. What are you doing? What? Serenity now. Serenity now.
Serenity now. Insanity later.
Okay, so what are the next steps then, right? Well, how's this going to go forward? I don't know. Maybe there's other charges within the law, crimes that they feel like were committed that they can now prosecute Kristine and Michael for. I don't know why they wouldn't have done that sooner. It's been over 2 years since the original charges were filed. The Attorney General, who has been mum on the case, I guess in reports because of the gag order and whatnot. I don't know. I don't know what the next steps are. They weren't quiet about filing with the Supreme Court and what they were going to do after that. Now they're quiet. Now it's they're not going to comment on anything. I guess we'll find out. But I hope that if there is evidence and Natalia's been dealt a bad hand here, been treated unfairly, not only by the Barnetts, but then by the state prosecution and the Attorney General, then I hope that new evidence comes to light and something is done about that. If the Barnetts haven't committed any crimes here, then I hope they stop getting harassed. We could turn around and look at it from, say, a moral standpoint and say, even if Natalia was an adult, should they have left her in an apartment by herself, given that she had obviously some physical disabilities due to her dwarfism? Was that the right thing to do? I don't know. It seems like not. I don't know. I wasn't really there. I wasn't in the situation. They claimed that she was doing all of these horrible things and saying these horrible things to them and their kids. Frankly, Natalia somewhat substantiated on the Dr. Phil show.
I landed on his arm wrong, so the mom thought I was trying to break his arm.
Now, again, just because something's legal doesn't mean it's right. The state prosecution, Attorney General, keep taking L's here. I'll leave a link in the description to my playlist for all of the other Natalia Barnett and Kristine and Michael Barnett, all the videos about this particular case. Because one thing I didn't do this time was go through and recap everything, which for some reason I feel like that's a courtesy to people watching, but I constantly get criticized for either giving too much detail in my recap and people just want the new information, or not giving enough detail in the recap. So I didn't do it at all this time. So how's none for you? How do you like them apples?
How do you like them apples?
That's where I'm going to end today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks to everyone who have watched all my videos and been following this story along with me. It's been a wild ride. And like I said all along, I just hope that the truth comes out and that if there's justice to be served, that it's served. I really, really appreciate all of you, and I'll talk to you soon. Yeah. This is the end of the video. Like and subscribe. This is going to be a bitch to edit down. My stupid rambling and rants and not following my bullets. Okay.